I'm Bart Rust with Forbes Breaking News, and joining me today is Dr. Jason Hubbart from the University of West Virginia. He's an Associate Dean and Professor of Physical Hydrology. Dr. Hubbart, thank you so much for joining us today.
I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely. The Olympic Games are starting in a couple of days here, and there's been some concern about the open water swimming events taking place in the River Seine in the heart of Paris. And we know that the French government has spent, about $1.5 billion to clean up the river. So my question to you is sort of what goes into a project like that? What goes into cleaning up the River Seine to make sure it is safe enough for athletes and regular people to swim in?
Right, it's a stunning amount of effort. I mean, the number of people, organizations, and agencies that have to be involved in this kind of an effort is kind of bewildering if you think about it. So I think that there's been about a 1.5 billion invested in this wastewater and rainwater storage basin alone, which is intended, I believe, to hold about the equivalent of 20 Olympic pools of water, stormwater runoff. So there's been the development of that facility, but also decades really of work that have gone into cleaning the Seine River, even prior to this. Certainly the declaration of the holding of the Olympic Games has accelerated and incentivized a lot of this work. And so there's been a whole lot more investment. But there's been work to clean up the Seine for a long time. It was a very much a cultural river up until around 1900 to 1920. I think it was closed officially for swimming in 1923, and so it's been closed to swimming for a very long time. The implications of opening the river for the Olympics are huge. It's a huge economically, but it's also very important for the socio-culture of the Parisians, the folks that live in Paris and the surrounding communities and Europe. So it signifies a very large effort, costing a whole lot of money and labor to come together to do something that is just incredibly worthwhile. It's not just about the Olympics, but it's about creating a safe place and restoring a very famous and important river to its people.
So you would say that it will probably be safe enough to swim in for the Olympic Games. The athletes will be, assuming there's no major events, that should be good to
Right.
go.
Yeah. I mean, I think we are good to go. It's not that simple, and the media can get caught up in some of the simple nuances of stormwater runoff, and that's really what this is about. And hopefully the new storage basin is going to do its job and help a lot. What's really, I think, very important is that the Olympic planners have built in flexibility in scheduling. So, for example, if they get a major rainfall event, that could be large enough to create some flushing, right, from stormwater systems. Now, hopefully, the new storage basin will collect it all. But if it's a massive event, there could be some runoff. In that case, then the Olympic planners may want to hold off on some events. It seems like they've developed some flexibility in the scheduling to do that. And if they can do that, which I'm sure they can, then they can wait for some of that rainfall or that runoff to recede, for the water to go back to drop back down into healthier levels where folks can get back in the water. So I think on that basis that I feel quite confident. I mean, look, this is a huge liability for Paris. It's a huge liability for the Olympic Games planning committees that are international in scope. The liability for human health is huge. And so they've got this figured out. They've got it dialed in. They're testing it all the time, and they know what they're doing over there. So I'm pretty confident. Yeah.
Great. So they know what they're doing over there, and I guess that sort of segues into my next question for you. Are there any sort of similar projects that are happening in the U.S. or lessons we can take from Paris's effort to clean the River Seine
Yeah.
that have been implemented, domestically here in the U.S.?
Right. I appreciate the question. Yeah. So I said they know what they're doing over there. It's a good question. Do we know what we're doing over here? Well, I would say for the most part we know what needs to be done. right? The ability to implement change and plans is where things get complicated. I mean, just imagine if there's a room of 100 people and someone asks, what does water quality mean to you? There will be 100 different answers, right? And so it's very, very complicated when you have so many people from so many different perspectives coming to resolve these huge problems. We have a lot of large river problems and small river problems. I think the estimate is somewhere around 700 million miles of polluted waters in America. So we have our work cut out for us. You know, I would say that in the interest of time here, the largest issue that we have with our big river systems in America, and this is probably true for most big river systems globally, is management. And that is really an issue about policies. And so many of our policies that we have in America are literally decades old, and so much has changed in recent decades. Population has grown, the way we use the landscape has grown. Certainly, we've improved our practices, but we really do need to take a look at policies and make decisions about how we think they should be managed going forward. And we have a lot of work to do and many management issues to deal with in America to resolve many of our large river system issues, for sure.
Got it. So I think safe to say for the 2028 Olympics, we will not see any of the open water event taking place in the Los Angeles River then?
Well, you know, I think that, well, I'm an optimist. And so I will say that if LA decided that should be a priority, I think they'd figure it out. There's a lot of smart folks there too, and they can figure out what to do. They may not be able to clean up the whole thing, but I'd put money on that they could clean up a chunk of it to make that work if they really wanted to. Now that would be again a major feat with labor and cost, right? But I would have faith that they could pull it off if they decided to do that.
Gotcha. And I guess to wrap up, is there any projects you're working on right now or looking at in terms of major river system cleanup efforts that you're excited about or have been have made significant progress?
Oh yeah, well, I mean, I remain engaged in the Mississippi River Basin and looking at the Missouri and Mississippi rivers in terms of their draining to the Gulf of Mexico and issues related to nutrient runoff and hypoxia. Hypoxia, of course, is where the Gulf becomes where you have a removal essentially through algal blooms of oxygen from the water. It's oxygen deprived, and that leads to organisms dying in the waters and whatnot. And so we've been involved in that for a very long time. A lot of management changes, a lot of policy changes related to that I'm very excited about. There's great progress. I'm very much engaged since 2016 in the Chesapeake Bay program. Rivers like the Potomac River that have had, again, so much work done. We have made such great progress in the Chesapeake Bay program. And progress means that we've been working in all of our upland areas and all of our states that have waters that flow to the Chesapeake Bay. There's been so much progress. We have access to hatcheries now, and that we didn't have access to, back in the 1980s in that system. So there's been a lot of work there. There's a need to relook at policies. There's a renewal in 2025 coming for the Chesapeake Bay program, looking at the river cleanup processes and also the status of the bay. And decisions have to be made about, just similar to any other big river system anywhere on the planet. People need to decide what they want that river system to look like. What do we want it to look like in 50 years? We pretty much always have a good vision for what that is, a good idea of what we're looking for, but getting there is incredibly complicated, it's incredibly costly. Sacrifices have to be made and decisions made and policies changed. So yeah, I'm really thrilled at all of the opportunities I've had. I'm doing work in West Virginia and the Monongahela River, many other places, and thrilled with progress, very optimistic about the future, and there's always more to do.
Great. Well, Dr. Hubbart, thank you so much, both for joining us today and for the positive outlook. Really appreciate it. And, yeah.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Thanks for the invite.